These days, one of the country's most influential news programs is not a news program at all.
Hey Cheyenne, we'll get started here in just a couple minutes. Probably about 6 or 7 minutes. I'm just checking the sound right now for some of these clips.
This new structure of selling in Hollywood.
Hey guys, we'll get started here in just a few minutes. I'm just getting set up here. So forgive me for a couple of minutes here. Okay, everyone, just give me a couple minutes here and then we'll get set up.
It's what Stewart's audience has come to expect, and not just on TV.
Okay, everyone, just give me one more minute and then we'll get started here. Actually, wait 2 more minutes and then then we'll get started here. Hold on, everyone. Let me just quiet the dogs here. Hold on. Give me 1 second here and then we'll start. Alrighty. So let's go ahead here and get started. Let me go ahead here and start the recording. Okay, I guess it is recording. So anyways, so hope everybody is doing well. I wanted to kind of go over some papers here for the time writing. Now keep in mind, I haven't gotten through like all the essay twos necessarily, but I think that you guys are doing a really, really great job. In fact, I was even telling a colleague of mine how wonderful that you guys are doing for this. So let me just ask here in the chat box before we get started here. Did everybody feel good with their timed writing? I mean, I know that sometimes it feels like you're in a timed essay, so I know it can feel a little bit daunting at sometimes. Okay, so Helena says yes. Awesome. Okay, great. And Hunter says yes, great. Because I think that you guys did a really fantastic job. And I'm only going to pull out a couple of them, but I mean, it's, honestly, you guys did such a wonderful job. So this is from Renee, and she talks about being an underdog. I don't think so. And then I love this first quote here, or actually the first paragraph that she says here. Giants are not strong as powerful as they seem, and sometimes the shepherd boy has a sling in his pocket. And that's what Malcolm Gladwell said. And he's absolutely right. And Renee is absolutely right. So I think that a lot of times in our society, we think that we're kind of dealt an uneven hand. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I can think of like a lot of people that I've heard from who said that, oh, well, they were not dealt in even hands. And then actually, you know what? They end up being incredibly successful. Can anybody think about something like that in their life where you know somebody that maybe was dealt a bad hand, but then ended up being extremely successful? Any examples? Maybe, maybe not. But I think that Renee does a really great job in this essay. And the other thing I just want to, oh, sparring a black belt. Okay, okay, Hunter, great. You know, the other thing I just want to point out about like, you know, a paper like this is that you don't have to worry about paragraph length. Because sometimes people think, oh, well, do you have to have a certain paragraph length or is this going to be too long? No, the answer is no. I don't care how long your paragraphs are. I mean, make sure to have more than one. Obviously, you don't want to just have like one long text. But I think that you guys are fine, and I think that Renee did a really, really great job in this essay. And also, you know, Helena, I know that I didn't pull your essay up, but I know that Helena did a really great job too, talking about how, you know, you should never feel like you're the underdog. I mean, that's the wrong mindset to have. I mean, on one hand, it makes sense to say that, hey, if you were like kind of left out as the under crowd, if you will, but yeah, you should never have the mindset that you are like an underdog, because you should always feel that you are just as top notch as the top of the people that are getting your position or whatever it might be. Helena, I know I don't want to make you chat, but in the chat box here, can you explain that a little bit? How about you should never be an underdog? Any ideas? Because I think you did a really great job in your paper of explaining that, actually. So, I mean, um, exactly. So she says that if you have an underdog mindset, you won't achieve your goals. That's exactly right. So even if you grew up with a mindset of being an underdog, don't let that like inhibit you. You should always make sure that you have a positive mindset to be able to achieve your goals. And I think that Helena did a great job of explaining that in her paper. Okay, so let's take a look here at another paper. This is from, actually, she didn't put her name on it, but that's okay. That wasn't required for this assignment. This is actually, I think, from Selena, and she's not in our class right now, not our 930 class, but I think that she's in the previous class. But she also did a fantastic job of kind of laying out like what it means to be an underdog. And then she even brings up the definition here from Webster's dictionary, I think. Underdog, a person or group of people with less power, money, etc., than the rest of society. I used to think of myself as practically incompetent when I first moved to the United States as a French Canadian immigrant amongst kids who had the privilege of knowing and understanding the English language since they were young. I felt alienated. And then she goes on through this paper to talk about her experience and how, once again, it's a mistake to think that you're always an underdog, or and that's exactly what Malcolm Gladwell says. It's like you society says you're an underdog, but actually, if you look closely, you're not an underdog at all. So I think that's a great thing that Gladwell does. Okay, so, and then also here's another a few other examples, but let's kind of, well, here, let me just point out this. Valeria, if she's in this class right now, she might be in the earlier class, but that's fine. But she also had a really, really excellent paper because she says, like, look, every day we are influenced by many things, including family, society, friends, acquaintances, and even unfamiliar to us as people, or us people. But is it a good idea to listen to what we are advised? How does another person could know exactly what is best for us or what will be best for us if every person has an independent path, gains an exclusive experience with accumulates knowledge about things during life and even things differently. In this essay, I'm going to tell you why I expect different for me in my future. I mean, this is such a great opening paragraph. Now, ordinarily, I would say that for your papers, you don't necessarily want to have a thesis that ends with this necessarily, but actually in this case, and because this is not an official paper, I think that she does it exactly correctly. I think that Valeria does it exactly correct. So, and then she goes on, in my opinion, and you notice here, if you go through the paper, it's really well written. I mean, no grammar mistakes, no spelling mistakes, things like that. I know that, by the way, I know that you only had a certain amount of time, like 75 minutes. So that's totally fine. And it's fine if you didn't have, like, a running head here, like that doesn't matter. I mean, she did a really, really excellent job. So I just want to commend her. If she's in this class, she might have been in the earlier class, but just really excellent job. Okay, so let's go into this idea of media literacy. And remember, just a reminder that if you go to, and I'm sorry, I don't have it pulled up, unfortunately. I closed it out for the last class. But if you go to our class, and let's just pull this up real quickly here. And this is going to look a little bit differently from my perspective than yours. But if you go to Canvas, and let's just go to, again, this looks a little bit differently from my perspective than yours, but let's just go to one of the classes, and let's just do the student view. And this is what you should be seeing. Again, it looks differently from my point of view than yours. But if you go to the assignments here, and you have the essay 2, of course, this one is the one I want to focus on. I want you guys to really focus on finding a topic that you agree with or that you are passionate about, and then finding 6 sources whether they agree or disagree. I mean, either one is fine. I mean, but just talk about the sources and why you agree or disagree with them. And the assignment here is, unfortunately, I don't have it pulled up here. Actually, I might right here. Before we get into our lecture today, let me just see if I have this pulled up here. Maybe not. Actually, yeah. Okay. So here it is. This is what I want you guys to do for the next assignment. I just want you to find 6 sources, and And I will tell you, I just to keep her name anonymous, I didn't put her first name there. But essentially, this is what you need to do. So you find a source, you have the right citation. So I've told you how to do that before. And then you have 2 paragraphs for each source. So in the first paragraph, you just simply state like the summary of the source. You simply state, okay, here's what the source says. Then the next paragraph, I want you to explain how would you use this source in like a paper, a research paper. Now, for this class, you don't have to use a research paper, but I just want you to explain how you would use this source for a research paper. So before going on here, does that make sense to everybody? I mean, so the first paragraph is just a summary of the source. You have the citation right here. And then you have a summary of the source. And then you would explain how you would use the source. Does that make sense to everybody? I mean, it should, but you'd be sometimes you'd be surprised that it sometimes it doesn't. Okay, perfect. So I want you guys to have 6 sources, and we'll have more. In fact, not to spoil things, but I think that even later today, I'm going to have like a bonus session where we'll kind of go over things, because I think that we're probably not going to get to everything that I want to cover right now, but we will definitely for Wednesday. And remember that for next week, we're going to have a class on Monday, and then we're going to have like a bonus class, which I'm actually going to give you. I'm going to show actually. And by the way, I may have mentioned this before. I mentioned this to the earlier class, but I do have the right from the Supreme Court of the United States to go ahead and show you guys. It's called the Fair Use Clause. So I'm going to be able to show you, even if you don't have Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever it might be, I'm going to be able to show you the movie Pieces of April. And for my money, like I said, it's the best Thanksgiving movie of all time. I know that a lot of people would say Hannah and Her Sisters, and I tend to agree with that. I mean, I love that movie. I think that it's great, but I'm going to show you Pieces of April, which Katie Holmes did basically on like a shoestring budget. I mean, no money at all. In fact, I talked to the director. His name's Peter Hedges, and he even told me that they did that movie for like basically no budget whatsoever. But it like Katie Holmes, she just loved the script so much, and it was such a touching script. And trust me, when you guys see the movie next week, you're gonna feel the same way. It's just such a touching script, and it's just such a great movie. He did it basically because his mom was going through cancer, and that's kind of what the movie is about, actually, where Katie Mom's, her mother in that movie is going through cancer, and just a fantastic movie. So look forward to seeing you guys with that. And then again, it's going to be totally like an extra credit assignment. I realize at this point we kind of are almost out of time this semester, so I do want to have some more, like, bonus sessions and so forth, if we can do those. Again, totally optional. You don't have to attend them. They're not going to be any grades based on them, but it would be great to kind of give you guys some more lectures if possible, if you guys are interested in it. So anyways, though, let's get into this. I think that we left off with about this slide, and it was about media literacy. So remember that I told you that MTV back in the day, they used to do shows based on music, These days, they don't do so much anymore, right? Um, and I will tell you this though about Tom Cruise, because I've heard and I've read so much about this. I do think that Scientology is kind of wacko, and I've heard, and I don't know if you guys have seen the documentary with I forget her name offhand, but she did a documentary that just exposes the hell out of Scientology, and it's really scary actually. Um, does anybody know who I'm talking about? What's her name offhand? Does anybody know in the chat box? Can you tell me? I forget her name offhand. Anybody? Okay, okay. But I forget her name offhand. But she really does a number on Scientology. That being said, I will tell you that talking with Tom Cruise personally, he was a great person to interview. And I mean, he was just like the nicest person in the world. And by the way, because I also had a chance to interview people like Chris Rock and Rob Schneider, and and also some other people as well, and they were not that friendly. I will say that Tom Cruise, I mean, for all his Scientology shenanigans and however terrible that might be, I will tell you that he was actually a good interview. So I'll tell you guys about that uh, next time. In fact, one of the funny things is that you guys might remember the South Park episode where they had Tom Cruise in a closet, and that was kind of a in joke to try to say that, oh, Tom Cruise is really in the closet because he's really gay. Uh, and I can tell you that episode was so funny, but they so I don't know. Just in the chat box, has anybody ever seen that episode with Tom Cruise in the closet? Just in the chat box, just yes or no, or okay. So Helena says no. Um, it's one of the best episodes that there is, and the whole thing. In fact, if you'll indulge me, um, so Helena and everybody that's watching, hopefully you won't hate me for this, but I just want to show you guys this, just because I just thought of it. Remember, okay, just remember though, library project, that's the main thing. That's the 6 sources right here that I'm circling. And then reading assignment 5, you don't have to actually do this. We might talk about this article, but just for right now, just go ahead and hit submit and put in Katina. Okay, Katina, Katina, okay? So let me just go ahead here and let's just do something funny, kind of spontaneous off the top of my head, but this is kind of cool. Okay, so let me just show you guys this. This is kind of cool. And yeah, we still have time. So I want to show you this, and then we'll get in more into the presentation. And like I said, we're probably going to have some bonus sessions. So even later today, if I get the chance, I'm actually moving into a different apartment. So so I don't know if I'll get the chance today, but we're going to have some bonus sessions and of course pick up in this next week. But let's go ahead here and take a look at this. And this is Trey Parker, Matt Stone. This is what I was telling you about with Tom Cruise and South Park, and this is kind of a cool little. I mean, they talk about this, but they talk about Trey Parker, Matt Stone in general. So hope you guys will like this.
If you came to New York this summer to see a Broadway play or a musical, chances are the one show you couldn't get tickets for was the Book of Mormon. And if you want to come and see it next summer, you would be well advised to book your reservations now. The new musical is from Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the creators of South Park, a show that changed the face of cable TV and is currently celebrating its 15th season. Now they're working their magic on The Great White Way with another outrageous satire. And it's not their first musical. The South Park movie included the Oscar-nominated song Blame Canada. Now they're the toast of Broadway. The story will continue in a moment. This has been the scene outside the Eugene O'Neill Theater since March as people line up for the Book of Mormon, the hottest ticket on Broadway. It has already grossed $32 million, is sold out for the next 5 months, and probably will be for years to come. And that is music to the ears of its two creators, Trey Parker on the left and Matt Stone on the right.
Were you surprised it's been so successful?
Yeah.
I mean, we thought it was good. We thought, the songs were really good, and but we didn't think it was going to be like this.
Hello, my name is Elder Price.
The musical is not just a satire of clean-cut, earnest Mormons with unorthodox beliefs. It's a playful send-up of all organized religion.
Hello, my name is Elder Young. Hello. Did you know that Jesus lived here in the USA?
It's the story of two mismatched missionaries played by Andrew Reynolds and Josh Gad, who were sent off to Africa to proselytize to pagans who have heard similar spiels before, with no meaningful results.
In this part of Africa, we all have a saying. Whenever something bad happens, we just throw our hands to the sky and say, Hasta diga evil one.
Does it mean no worries for the rest of our days?
Kind of. We've had no rain in several days. Hasta diga evil one. And 80% of us have AIDS. Hasta diga evil one.
What the Mormons don't know, but soon will find out, is that the locals are flipping the finger at their Heavenly Father.
F you to Heavenly Father? Holy moly, I said it like 13 times!
It is rude, crude, lewd, and blasphemous, but it hasn't kept critics from proclaiming the Book of Mormon the best Broadway musical in a decade.
So real quick, they're going to start getting into to Tom Cruise and what I was just talking about.
Or stop it from racking up 9 Tony Awards. And for theater-going fans of Trey Parker and Matt Stone, it's exactly what they wanted and expected from the creators of South Park.
A lot of the stuff, the subject matter we've tackled, the way we found ourselves there is simply by trying to do something that no one else has touched. And so we're just like, well, there's a reason why people haven't touched that. And we're like, oh, really? Because we want to go do jokes that other people haven't done,
Are there lines that you won't cross?
No. We haven't found one yet.
They're barely 40 and have already been collaborating for 20 years. They met in a film class at the University of Colorado and were partnered up to work on a project, quickly discovering that they shared a love of Monty Python and a subversive sense of humor.
What were you like back then? Really cool. It was just amazingly cool. Most popular guys at CU.
Do you remember what the attraction was?
I just remember that our senses of humor were just so similar that we would just really crack each other up, and it got really annoying for everyone else in film school.
Watch out for that bear trap.
What?
At ages 19 and 20, they raised $100,000 to make a movie about a Colorado prospector named Alfred Packer, who was forced to dine on his colleagues while snowbound in the mountains.
That's all we're asking for.
Cannibal, the musical, was rejected by the Sundance Film Festival, but Parker and Stone went anyway and held guerrilla screenings in a hotel conference room.
Did the film get released?
Basically,
Yeah, I
on
guess that's-
video. I guess that's what you could call it, a release.
I can like buy it on Amazon.com.
Yeah, I bet you can.
You might not want to pay more than $1 for it, but
You may not like the price.
They moved to Hollywood and spent 3 whole years as starving young artists until a studio executive gave them $1,200 and asked them to make a video Christmas card that he could send to his friends.
We went back to Colorado and we spent 3 or 4 weeks cutting out construction paper, and we did this little thing called the Spirit of Christmas.
Behold my glory.
Holy it's Jesus!
The primitive 5-minute cartoon featured an epic battle between Jesus and Santa Claus over control of the holiday, as witnessed by a group of young boys that would eventually become the South Park Kids.
Help me put an end to him once and for all. No, boys, help me. Stan, remember the choo-choo when you were 3? I died for your sins, boys. Don't forget that.
The video became an underground sensation. Bootleg copies circulated all over the country and ended up in the VCR machines of entertainment executives in LA, New York, and London.
that became so huge. I mean, it really was so viral before YouTube and all that. All of a sudden, people wanted to meet us more. And we got meetings everywhere all of a sudden. And people were like, okay, what do you want to do?
They eventually signed a contract to produce 6 episodes of a cartoon show based on the spirit of Christmas for a fledgling cable network called Comedy Central. The show was named South Park after a real place in a remote stretch of Colorado where Trey Parker says strange things always seem to happen.
South Park was where everyone growing up, all the stories would come. We're like, oh, did you hear they found another UFO? There's been all these cattle mutilations. And it's like, where? South Park.
Their version of South Park would become a creative petri dish to examine and parody all the truly weird things going on in the adult world of America, as seen through the eyes of 4 elementary school boys who tried to make sense of it all.
We used to talk about All in the Family, and we were big fans of All in the Family. And we were, in the time of the early 90s, we were kind of sitting there going, you know, a show like that couldn't be on the air right now. You couldn't do it because things are so PC. You couldn't have an Archie Bunker. And we used to talk about how, you know, if Archie Bunker was 8 years old, I bet you could do it.
By the way, children, there's a walkout scheduled today to protest the war in Iraq. So if you're against the war, run along outside. And if you're for the war, stay here and we'll do math problems.
The common device is to drop the kids in the middle of some explosive situation and surround them with extremes on all sides of an issue.
Here you go, boys. These will help you protest. Tom Stoutzel, HBC News. Can you tell me why you kids marched out of school today?
War?
Hey, all you un-American bastards! If you don't like America, why don't you get out?
The show regularly takes on race and bigotry.
Category is people who annoy you. Audience, keep quiet, please.
I know it, but I don't think I should say it.
In this episode, one of the boys' father makes an embarrassing appearance on Wheel of Fortune.
Huh?
Oh. Ooh.
Oh, naggers, of course.
And then there was this on the financial crisis.
How can I help you, young man?
I got a $100 check from my grandma, and my dad said I need to put it in the bank so it can grow over the years.
Well, that's fantastic. A really smart decision, young man. We can put that check in a money market mutual fund. Then we'll reinvest the earnings into foreign currency accounts with compounding interest, and it's gone.
What?
It's gone. It's all gone.
What's all gone?
The money in your account. It didn't do too well. It's gone.
What do you mean? I have $100.
Not anymore, you don't. Poof.
It's worth reminding the uninitiated viewer that we're showing you sanitized scenes suitable for network television, not the cable, movie, or DVD versions in which the dialogue can be scatological as well as philosophical and every bit as profane as it is profound. But it is usually pitch perfect to anyone who has spent time around 10-year-olds aspiring to be adolescents.
I'll bet if you eavesdropped on a bunch of 4th graders today, the language would be pretty close to what you hear on South Park. I think we talked like this when I was in 4th and 5th grade. You know, you learn those.
We
bad
did. That
words
was
and
a con. I
you
remember
just know
us
how to
saying-
shut it off when the adults were around.
Yeah, and it was like, let's do a show where kids talk the way kids talk.
Right.
Because at the time we were, you know, just out of college, like, oh, we remember, you know. And
Maybe that's like we
really
were young enough to remember.
Yeah.
Now we're remembering.
Perhaps the most remarkable thing about Parker and Stone is that over the past 15 years, they have written, directed, and voiced the major characters in every scene of more than 200 episodes of South Park.
Then why did you lie about not seeing Clyde Frog the night he died? I know that I'm awesome and cool, Polly Prissy Pants.
Their typical week begins on Thursday in this LA conference room with a blank.
And by the way, let me just pause here for a second and explain that the amazing thing about the South Park show is that they literally start their days on Thursday morning, and they literally do their entire show by Thursday, which is unheard of in the television industry. But it also keeps them kind of up to date, so that's kind of a really cool thing that they do.
Storyboard and a brainstorming session that includes executive producer Ann Garofino and 2 staff writers.
And you have like a typical, like Cartman comes in.
They have 6 days to deliver a completed episode to Comedy Central that will air the following Wednesday.
Okay.
That usually involves 5, 10 to 12-hour days and one all-nighter. As soon as they have an idea for a scene, Parker will sit down and bang it out, then hand it off to the animators, and if necessary, to the lawyers.
We have probably more freedom than anyone in television. We have for a long time. But we do still, at the end of the day, we have lawyers, we have legal.
One of the touchiest episodes was about Scientology.
So this is what I'm talking about with Tom Cruise. Kind of interesting story.
A notoriously litigious group. Parker and Stone wanted to include a scene dealing with tabloid rumors that Tom Cruise, its most famous member, was secretly gay.
And actually the joke was just, okay, we're going to have Tom Cruise show up and he's flamboyantly gay and whatever. Like, yeah, but you can't say he's gay. And it's like, okay, but we can say he's like closeted gay. Like, no, you really can't say that either. Like, and then it just became this thing of like, what if he's literally in a closet? And they're like, yeah, you can do that.
Hey, Dad, Tom Cruise won't come out of the closet.
Mr. Cruz, come out of the closet.
Tom, it's Nicole. You don't need to be in that closet anymore, Tom.
Tom, it's John Travolta. Tom, you gotta come out of the closet. Oh my God.
Their politics are indecipherable, but tending towards libertarian. They don't carry water for anyone, don't do market research, and their only target audience is each other. If something makes them both laugh, it ends up in the show.
So how do you describe this relationship? At this point, it's kind of like a marriage, in the way that we're just been together so long. We spend so much time together that you can almost finish each other's sentences.
And it's funny because we're just at that level now where it just doesn't happen anymore that one of us can say to the other, one time I was doing this. It's like, yeah, I know, I was there.
The foundation of the relationship is one of the strongest partnerships I've ever seen in any business.
Ann Garofino and Scott Rudin know them as well as anyone and have been with them since the very beginning. Garofino is the executive producer of South Park, and Rudin is the entertainment mogul who launched their film careers. Both produced the Broadway musical.
Sometimes I've seen people try and triangulate one against the other. You see people try to get between them. They shut it down so fast. They have each other's backs in the absolute best possible way. And it doesn't mean they don't disagree, because they frequently disagree, but they are genuinely a partnership.
Garofino believes that Matt Stone is the more ruthless of the two when it comes to satire, and that Trey is softer with a sweet sense of humor that provides the charm. We wanted to know what they thought of that analysis.
That Ann's pretty smart.
Ann's a bitch.
See, that was the opposite. That was really nice.
We're just proving the opposite.
Boy, that Trey's ruthless.
Damn, she's fired.
I believe that the Lord God created the universe. I believe that he sent his
There's no doubt that sharp teeth and a big heart are the foundation of their success, and both qualities are evident in the Book of Mormon, which manages to ridicule the silliness of religious dogma while still being uplifting and pro-faith.
And the Mormon trust believes.
All right.
Go to 60minutesovertime.com.
So you guys can kind of see that story if you want to go more on 60 Minutes, but let's go a little bit more here. We have some time. So we've kind of talked about these things, about how MTV used to have like actual music, and now they have just reality shows. I think I've talked about how ABC will promote certain football games that are going to be on ESPN, or vice versa. ESPN will, Sports Center will promote games that are going to be on ABC, and so forth. So now, okay, I'm going to show you this clip. I know that this is a little bit dated, and it actually it doesn't even work. But this goes to show that the Jon Stewart show, the Daily Show, was extremely popular back in the day. I mean, just in the chat box, do you guys remember the Jon Stewart Daily Show? I know that some other guy. I know that it's run by somebody else now. But do you guys remember Jon Stewart? Well, what's interesting is that back in the day, when this show came out, it was basically the equivalent of the news media at that time. And by the way, Jon Stewart, he's not a, like, you know, well, I think he's a Democrat, but he wasn't like doing this as a Democrat or Republican. He was just kind of making fun of the news. And it was so funny because the Daily Show came out, and it was so much better than what the news would come out with. And so this is kind of a news clip. I'm only going to play you a couple segments of this because the lips don't match up and everything. But
These days, one of the country's most influential news programs is not a news program at all. It airs on the Comedy Central channel. Each night, The Daily Show with Jon Stewart relentlessly parodies broadcast news.
Target USA!
The night we visited the show, they were skewering CNN for its fevered coverage of the latest terror threat.
Not fear. CNN Security Watch.
Facts, not fear, not fear! Even though we're using the fear music with the fear voice and the fear font. That's to get your attention so we can tell you everything's cool. Don't be afraid.
This is what Stewart's audience has come to expect. A raucous dissection of the content and conventions of TV news.
What is the mindset? Having been a politician, obviously not in Washington.
Sometimes it even makes news of its own. Politicians show up to be interviewed, from former President Bill Clinton to President Musharraf of Pakistan.
I don't know. You know where he is, you lead on, we'll follow you.
A few years ago, America's TV critics declared this comedy show to be the best news program on television,
Vulnerable everywhere.
to the dismay of the show's producers.
To the extent that people look to us as a source of news that is 100% indicative of other people's failure and not our success.
Now, of course, we don't want to give any wannabe terrorists any.
So let me just ask you guys in the chat box before going further. Do you guys think that a lot of times the news that we see in the media that are comedy, that should be considered comedy, are actually more realistic than the news that you see in the actual news? whether it's, you know, NBC or ABC, whatever it might be. Like, what do you guys think about that? So Helena agrees. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, it is so funny because I will tell you once again, working in the journalism field, I mean, the industry is such a disgrace because there is really no reliable news anymore. I mean, everything is just either bias or, and I don't mean like bias like left or right or anything like that, but I mean just even biased in terms of like advertisements. I mean, it just seems like so many news stories out there are just ads for, you know, car companies or whoever it might be. So it is kind of really, I guess disconcerting, I would say. Okay, so let's I tell you what. Okay. So we only have a little bit more time. And I do want to show you one last video clip, but before that though, one of the things I just want to point out though, is that when we talk about this idea of media literacy, we're not just talking about, you know, politics or things like that, but I'm talking about like entertainment media. So for example, just in the chat box, is anybody a fan of Tupac? And by the way, I'm a huge fan of Tupac, so I love Tupac. So, but anyway, so is anybody a fan of Tupac? No, maybe, maybe yes, maybe no. Anyway, so Tupac was a really interesting musical figure because a lot of what he wrote about, a lot of his songs were not just about, you know, shooting somebody or you know, like whatever. They were not just about shooting somebody, but they actually had a lot more deeper movements. So like, for example, the song, and actually, by the way, Machiavelli was very deep, that he chose to kind of use that alias. But the song Me and My Girlfriend, it's actually not about his girlfriend, but it's actually a lot deeper than that. And the lyrics themselves are a lot deeper than that. And really, if you go through all of his songs together, they are very, very deep and emotional, and they're not just like what you see on the surface. So he was a very great artist. And, you know, in the last class, I showed the video clip of Don McLean's American Pie, which was also not just what you think it was. Actually, the whole song was about like what was happening in the 1960s in the music industry and so forth. And the same thing goes with film. I mean, I can give you 5,000 examples of in the film industry, but I mean, like one of the examples I explained in the last class was like the movie High Noon. Now, everybody thinks of that as being this classic Western, which it is, but also though, it was kind of a metaphor for what was happening in society at the time. And the same thing goes with the Searchers. I mean, the Searchers is, for my mind, the best Western movie of all time. I think that High Noon is right up there, but I think that the Searchers, and then you could also say like, you know, Red River or even like last year, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, although that wasn't really a Western, but you could say for sure though that The Searchers is the best movie of all time in terms of for Westerns. But even that movie though you have to understand that there was a lot going on there. Just like with High Noon, probably the second best Western of all time, there was a lot going on there behind the scenes. So again, this is not a movie class, so I don't want to get into that necessarily, but I'm just going to say that there's a lot of different things that are happening underneath the surface, that anytime that you go to a movie or you're reading a book or you're watching a television show, just keep in mind that it's not just the creator that is trying to tell you something necessarily directly, but it is also a lot of things happening underneath the surface that you might not be aware of. So that's kind of cool. So anyways, we'll get more into this next time, but just for the last part of class, and I'll tell you all about, you know, Lady Gaga and the Illuminati symbolism that she uses. But I tell you what, we'll pick up on more on this next time, or maybe in the bonus session today. And I want to go through all this, but just let's just kind of end on this. This is just a little bit of a look. Now, keep in mind that this clip that I'm going to show you, it is a little bit dated, like it's from the late 2000s, but you have to keep in mind that all of these things that they talk about are still taking place today. So in other words, like, you know, Time Warner still owns like all of these different companies. Disney still owns Fox. It still owns ESPN. It still owns all of these companies. Viacom still owns CBS. So everything that you're going to see in this video clip is still taking place today, even in 2020. So let me just show you this, and I'll get more into this in the next class here. But let me just go ahead and show you this. But before, just kind of preface this. You know, it used to be back in the day, you used to have the publishing industry, the broadcast industry, like all of these things used to be kind of private. And it used to be back in the day that you would have about 50 different media companies that would like own like everything. Nowadays, it's about 4 companies, and you know who they are, like, right? Viacom, Disney, and Time Warner, and things like that. So this is how it used to be, and this is how it is now. And so, okay, so we're going to wrap up things, and I'm going to talk more about this in the next class, and maybe even a bonus session later today. You have to keep in mind that right now I'm in the process of moving. So I don't know if I can get to this today, but we'll definitely pick up on this in bonus sessions in the future, and also on Monday. And remember that you know, I still hope that in the future we might be able to have like a kind of a field trip, if you will, quote unquote field trip at SeaWorld or Universal. But I don't know if that's going to be able to happen, because they're telling me that we can't get any discounts necessarily. But we'll see. Anyways, though, so this will be the last thing that we'll do today, and look forward to seeing you guys on Wednesday. And after this, I'll give you guys like a wrap up, and then we'll say goodbye for this week. But anyways, check this out. This is really, really interesting.
This new structure of selling in Hollywood did not arise by accident. This is the result of new institutional structures in Hollywood, many of them made possible by these huge mega mergers.
The deal will create a company with a major television network, a movie production studio, vast holdings in cable television, the largest outdoor advertising company, and assets that will rival other media moguls like Time Warner and Rupert Murdoch's News Corporation.
And in the process, we will create an $80 billion giant.
One of the things to keep in mind when one goes to see a film at a theater, that it probably has been produced and distributed by a company that all.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just checking my power, so apologize for that.
This new structure of selling.
States, it's a major book public. In fact, they can't even survive.
Give me 1 second here.
Is a good example to use to understand the concept of synergy.
From magical movies to unforgettable adventures, from the thrill of the theater to the comfort of your home, you can always count on something new and exciting from Disney.
Here we have a company that begins to think about a film, but at the same time, they think about the kind of merchandise that can accompany that film. They think about the kind of theme park ride that can be produced from that film. They think about how it can be promoted across all of their other media outlets.
So you've got a film like The Lion King made by Disney in 1994. It was one of the great animated films in Hollywood history. It did something like $800 million in global box office. Now Disney, the film company, gets to keep about half that. The other half goes to the film theaters. So they have $300 or $400 million in their revenues. You know how much profit Disney made? They made over $1 billion in pure profit from The Lion King. How do you get $1 billion in profit out of $300 million in revenue? That's some pretty funny math, right? Well, then you stop and you consider what Disney can do with The Lion King. It can make a TV show for its Disney Channel or for its ABC television network. It can make Lion King rides for its Disneyland and Disney World and Euro Disney amusement parks. It has created 200 Lion King products that it can sell in its 660 Disney stores. CD-ROMs, it can make spin-off comic books, soundtracks. The possibilities are endless. So what this means is very simple. This is where it's important. If you only make animated films and do nothing else, your margin for error is a lot less, your risk is much greater. I mean, you're out there on a high wire, and if your film bombs, you're dead. Disney, on the other hand, they're out there. Even if their film doesn't do well at the box office, they can make $500 million doing all that other stuff.
One example of how difficult it can be for new content providers to break in to this kind of field and succeed is DreamWorks SKG, which features three of the richest and possibly most creative and talented people in Hollywood, Spielberg, Katzenberg, and Geffen. But DreamWorks SKG is not part of one of these multimedia conglomerates, so it doesn't have the structure to advertise and promote.
The best example came in the fall of 1998 when DreamWorks released its much acclaimed film, The Prince of Egypt. But it didn't do very well at the box office. At the same time, the Rugrats movie, released by Viacom, which owns Nickelodeon and Paramount, was released. It did extremely well at the box office. And but you put the two together, The Prince of Egypt was a much more impressive film. It should have done better, you'd think, on the surface. But what advantage did the Viacom film Rugrats movie have? Well, the Rugrats movie, made by Paramount, could be pumped and promoted incessantly on Nickelodeon, the TV network owned by Viacom. It could be pumped and promoted even on MTV, which is owned by Viacom. It was pumped and promoted repeatedly on Entertainment Tonight, the TV show produced by Paramount Television. In short, it had massive publicity that the Viacom corporate machine could throw into gear to pump up an audience and prepare it for this movie. And it worked, and made a fortune on this movie that didn't cost very much to produce. DreamWorks, on the other hand, if they want to compete with that movie, what do they have to do? They've got to buy ads. They've got to pay money. is they don't own TV stations. They don't own cable networks. They don't produce TV shows that are carried across the country. And they couldn't afford to do that. That would come out of their bottom line. And it's now seen that's the primary reason that film did not become a smash hit at the box office. It didn't have that sort of promotional muscle behind it.
And as the media industries tend more and more to be owned by, the same huge few corporations, so that the news divisions too are part of the same system, you tend more and more to get news items, big news stories that are really nothing more than journalistic echoes of the latest hype or product from the entertainment side of the business. So you get, for example, Time Magazine devoting a cover story to the phenomenon of tornadoes. And I don't think it's entirely accidental that the cover of that issue bears a striking resemblance, visually, compositionally, to the poster for the movie Twister. It came out just before that issue appeared, and which is a Warner Brothers film.
So let me just ask you guys in the chat box, I mean, is that something that you guys have ever considered when you are looking at a news magazine or newspaper? And has that been something that you've ever considered? That hey, maybe what you're watching or what you're seeing is totally different than, or it actually is inspired by media interests. Yeah, so it is really kind of amazing. In fact, let me show you guys this a little bit more, because
This new structure of selling in Hollywood did not arise by accident. This is the result of new institutional structures in Hollywood, many of them made possible by these huge mega mergers.
The deal will create a company with a major television network, a movie production studio, vast holdings in cable television, the largest outdoor advertising company, and
so let me just show you the rest of this though.
They said in a memo, and I quote, "We have no obligation to make history. We have no obligation to make art. We have..."
That movie, huge, bears a striking resemblance, visually, compositionally, to the poster for the movie Twister. It came out just before that issue appeared, and which is a Warner Brothers film. See, same parent company. Time Warner owns the magazine and the movie studio. So why not? Why not use the magazine's journalistic resources to intensify, to ground the hype? The great meltdown of the media, the fact that all the culture industry is basically owned by the same huge concerns, has had disastrous effects on what used to be known as film criticism, film reviewing. Well, now most film reviewers work for one or another of the same companies that make the movies. If you look at the blurbs, you look at the affiliations of these reviewers, and these are owned by, as often as not, the very companies that either make that movie or other movies. And even if it's not the same company, they're all engaged in the same enterprise, which is promotional. You can't be a critic and a promoter at the same time. It's impossible.
Listen to what some of the principal players have to say in private. Michael Eisner, the CEO of Disney, said in a memo, and I quote, "We have no obligation to make history. We have no obligation to make art. We have no obligation to make a statement. To make money is our only objective."
The greater the degree to which things are concentrated in huge multinational corporations, the more things that aren't guaranteed to produce $100 million profits will be marginalized and wiped out and ironed out and homogenized, you know, and that's the curse of living in a culture that's dominated by the marketplace.
So that's kind of a good point to leave off on. I know that we're almost out of time here, but we're going to get into the 4 different types of determinisms, and there's still so much to go with this lecture. I mean, this is actually, I mean, I loved doing the Cialdini lecture, but to be honest, this is probably my, in fact, this is the lecture that like different professors would recruit me to talk about, because such a great lecture, but not to brag. So we'll get into this a little bit more next time. So let me ask you guys though for the questions. So Helena says, teaching English 2 right now, no, but the problem is that the enrollment is so much down for all the universities, and it's not just our university, but I mean, like even like UCF. I might have an opportunity actually to teach there next semester, but really though, the enrollment for all these universities is down. So yeah, to be honest, you'll probably have Holly, who is awesome for English 2, and so you'll probably have her. I mean, technically speaking, they have me scheduled for like 1 class of English 1, but you know, it could, you know, it could be more than that, but you'll be in good hands. You'll have Holly Larson, and she's a really excellent person. I mean, I can't say enough great things about her. So you'll be in good shape. Any other questions before we wrap up for today? I know that we do have about 9 minutes left, but I'd rather we'll focus on some of this stuff next time, because we're going to get into the whole idea of media determinisms, and that's kind of its own separate topic. So so before I wrap up though, any more questions? And remember, I'll put this on YouTube, and you guys know how much I love you, and I care about you, and I really appreciate all the great work that you've done with the timed writing. And I haven't gotten into the essays yet, but I know that you guys will do a great job. And remember, for the final project, just 6 sources that you can find in the library, and 1 paragraph each for the summary, and then 1 paragraph how you would use them for your paper. Okay, and also Helena, so I know that you said that you, not to pick on you, I don't want to like embarrass you or whatever, but I know that you went to SeaWorld and you saw Trua. Did you see Katina as well? Yeah. So, well, again, this is not really class related, but I will tell you, yeah, this is me and Trua, and I got a chance to meet him twice in the underwater event. And I can tell you too that Katina is really, really special, and I've always loved to meet her, but she doesn't always come out necessarily for the underwater viewing or the behind the scenes tour, because, and the reason why that she does this is because she has mothering duties. So she kind of has to kind of get in the way between Malia and Nalani. You know, they're great orcas, but also, of course, you know, they're teenagers. So Katina sometimes has to, you know, separate them a little bit. So that's kind of one of the ways that she's able to do that, is to kind of be, you know, in like between them essentially. But she's a great, in fact, let me just pull up this here real quickly. Again, I know this is not related to class, but this is Katina, right? She is a great orca. And as you said, she is the matriarch, and you know, she's giving birth to like 7 different killer whales here. And these are her calves. So kind of a cool story. And then her grandchildren, and then great grandchildren, kind of cool. But anyways, though, let's go ahead here and wrap it up. My computer is about to die. But before I wrap up here, does anybody have any last minute questions about the assignments? Okay, well, again, you guys should know at this point how much I love all of you, and we'll go ahead here and, oh wait, Helena, you have a question? Oh, okay. Okay. Well, listen, you guys, at this point, I know that, okay, so Selena says, I had a question about the essay. Okay, so Selena, okay, I just don't know if I understood you, because when you went to submit, the prompt was entirely different. If you do accept late work, I will read. Well, okay, so Selena, I know that with the system, it may have said something differently in terms of the prompt, but that's okay. I mean, just as long as you submitted the assignment, that's fine. So for example, I know that the system was saying what I had written, which was about the underdog story. And then I know that the system was saying that it was about technology. Either way, that's fine. As long as you send it to me, I'll take care of it. Don't even worry about that, Selena. Because Selena, I know that your paper was so good. Your timed essay was so good that you don't have anything to worry about. And but anyways, though, I just want to thank everybody for attending. And you guys should know at this point how much I love all of you, and how much I really, really appreciate all your hard work. I know that this has been an incredibly challenging semester. I mean, with COVID, and I mean, just everything in general. I know that it's not just COVID, by the way, but it's also the fact that COVID has an effect on the economy. So people are struggling to pay the rent because they can't get a paycheck, because they can't get paid because of COVID. So really, really difficult times that we're dealing with. But like I said, you guys know how much I love you and how much I really appreciate your effort. And remember that even beyond the semester, if you ever want to reach out, like I said, I'm going to be presenting at the Orlando airport in March, and you guys are all welcome to it. And I'm sure that you guys can get, a discount or free, parking pass, whatever it might be. So you guys are all welcome to attend. I really just appreciate every single person that is contributing an effort. And I'm not talking about like the people that just don't show up for class or whatever. I'm talking about all of you that are listening to this broadcast and are doing a great job of participating, and I have no worries about you. So thanks everybody for attending. Remember that I'm going to probably put up a bonus session, maybe maybe today. But in any case, though, we'll see you guys on Monday. And once again, thank you guys all for attending. You guys are doing such a great job. Thank you.